Welcome back, True Seekers. I'm your host, Josh, and this is the True Seekers Podcast, where we dig deep, ask the hard questions, and uncover the mysteries hidden in history, mythology, and scripture. Today, we're taking on Fenrir, a legendary wolf from Norse mythology. But I have a theory. What if Fenrir wasn't just some fictional beast? What if he is actually a remnant of the Nephilim? And what does this mean for his father Loki? Could Loki actually be Azazel, a fallen angel from the Book of Enoch? Now, I know what you're thinking. Josh, you finally lost it. You're connecting Viking wolves to the Bible. Yes, I am. But stick with me. Because once we start weaving in Genesis 6, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the War Scroll, you're going to see how deep this rabbit hole actually goes. First off, if your exposure to Loki is Marvel movies, let me just burst your bubble now. The real Loki isn't some misunderstood, charming trickster. He's a chaotic force that doesn't just bend to the rules. He lights them on fire and then throws them into the sea. But here's where things get wild. Loki's characteristics match up shockingly with the fallen angel Azazel in the Book of Enoch. Now, speaking of the Book of Enoch, in 1st Enoch 8, Azazel is one of those leaders of the fallen angels, the one who descends to the earth, took human wives, and corrupted mankind. He's the one who taught men how to make weapons, introduced sorcery, and even, of all things, cosmetics. Because of course, fallen angels looked at humanity and thought, you know what you really need? Some eyeliner and a bronze sword. But here's the kicker. The Book of Jubilees, chapter 10, verses 7 through 9, tells us how after the flood, Azazel was bound because of destruction he caused. His corruption ran so deep that God instructed the archangels to bind the spirits of the fallen ones so they can no longer mislead humanity. Sound familiar? And yes, it does, because that's exactly what happens to Loki. He causes so much chaos among the gods and deceives them so many times that in the end, he gets bound until Ragnarok, the Norse version of the end times. Even 2 Corinthians 11:14 tells us that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. And that's Loki's whole MO. He infiltrates the divine realm, deceives and corrupts, just like Azazel. Now this is where things get really interesting. In Genesis 6, we see that the fallen angels took for themselves human wives and produced the Nephilim, hybrid beings that were never meant to walk on this earth. They were giants, mighty warriors, and according to the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, they became so violent and corrupt that God had to wipe them off the face of the earth with a flood. And what do we see in Norse mythology? Loki has children, but they aren't all normal children. His offsprings come from a giantess, and her name is Agamborta. Included Fenrir, a massive supernatural wolf, Jungmungandar, which I'm pretty sure I said that wrong, the world serpent, and Hel, the ruler of the underworld. Now, I don't know about you, but if you had 3 kids and one of them was a giant snake destined to destroy the world, I'd start questioning my life decisions. Fenrir stands out because his story mirrors the Nephilim. He's born from a supernatural father and a giantess, making him a hybrid, just like the Nephilim were, the offspring of the fallen angels and human women. And here's where the War Scroll comes in, from the Dead Sea Scrolls. This text describes a final cosmic battle between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. A battle where the corrupted forces of the fallen ones would rise up and be ultimately destroyed by God himself. Fenrir's story lines up with this pattern. He grows too powerful and is feared by the gods and is bound until the end of the world, when he breaks free and wages war. Sounds a lot like the War Scroll. Now the gods knew that Fenrir was too dangerous to roam free, so they tried to chain him. He broke free the first few chains until they finally succeeded with a magical one, the Glipnar. They bound him until Ranrock, when he will break free and bring destruction. Now compare this to 1 Enoch 10:4, where God commands that Azazel is to be bound and to be cast into the desert until the final judgment. And 2 Peter 2:4 echoes this. God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness to be held until judgment. If Fenrir is a remnant of the Nephilim, it would make sense why his fate mirrors theirs. He's much too dangerous to be left unchecked. Alright, here's where this theory gets a little heavier. Could Fenrir actually be a later version of Humbaba, the giant guardian from the epic Gilgamesh? Humbaba was described as a monstrous figure, set to guard the cedar forest. Feared by even the gods, he was ultimately defeated because he was seen as a threat to the divine order. And here's a pattern we keep seeing. Whether we're looking at Gilgamesh, the Nephilim, or Fenrir, we keep seeing the supernatural beings that keep claiming to be gods have to take them down before they become too powerful. Now, let's bring all this together. Ranrock is the Norse end times event where Fenrir breaks free, kills Odin, and plays a major role in the destruction of the gods. But let's compare that to the Bible and see what the Bible tells us about the final battle in Revelations 20:7-10. After being bound for 1,000 years, Satan is released for one last rebellion against God. He gathers all of his forces, just as Fenrir does in Ranrock. And for a brief moment, it sounds like the chaos might win. But just as in Ranrock, where Fenrir ultimately fails, Satan is utterly defeated. He's thrown into a lake of fire, never to rise again. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Ranrock doesn't just end in destruction. A new world emerges from the ruins. This mirrors the book of Revelations, specifically Revelation 21, where the old earth passes away and God creates a new heaven and new earth. Now, if you've been following along, you know that the book of Jubilees 5:1-11 gives us even more insight. It tells us that when the Nephilim were destroyed in the flood, that wasn't the end for them. Yes, their physical bodies were wiped out, but their spirits remained, becoming unclean spirits, what we now call demons. These spirits continue to corrupt mankind, influence rulers, nations, and even religions throughout history. And that's the key here. Because even though Fenrir dies in the end, his death doesn't mark the end of chaos. Instead, it resets the world for a new age. Just like the fallen ones weren't truly eradicated, but continued their influence long after the flood. It's a repeating cycle. Whether it's Nephilim, Fenrir, or Satan himself, the forces of chaos rise up. They're defeated, but their influence lingers, waiting for the final judgment. So the question is, are we still living in that cycle today? So, was Fenrir just a mythological wolf? Or was he a distorted memory of the Nephilim? When we piece it together from Genesis 6, the book of Enoch, and the book of Jubilees, and the War Scroll, it's clear. Fenrir fits the mold of a Nephilim hybrid. His father Loki matches the pattern of the fallen angel Azazel, who corrupts humanity and is eventually bound. Now here's the big question. Could Fenrir's legend be a retelling of a much older biblical event? Did the Norse preserve an echo of the pre-flood world, but just get a few details, let's say, mythologically extravagated? I'd love to hear what you think. Drop a comment with your thoughts, theories, or if you're just here because you got lost on the internet and suddenly find yourself knee deep in a Nephilim wolf conspiracy, either way, welcome. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, follow, and share. Because conversations like this need to happen. The deeper we dig, the more connections we uncover, and we need more people thinking critically about these ancient narratives. Now, I'd like to ask you guys to join us on our next episode, where we'll be shifting gears a bit and diving into the legend of Medusa, a mysterious figure overlooked in Greek mythology. Some claim she was a cursed woman, others claim she was an oracle, or even a misunderstood representation of something much older. But what does the Bible say about investigating stories like hers? And could there be more to this ancient figure than just mythology? We'll be inspecting her story through a biblical lens, just as we're commanded to do. And much further down the road, we'll be unveiling the veil, drawing the final lines between mythology, religion, and modern times, to expose the unseen forces still at work today. So I ask you to stay tuned, and stay curious, stay engaged, and as always, stay truthful.